When you were 11 years old, you were sexually abused by a family member. This person also groomed you. I'm sure now you didn't understand that it was a form of grooming, but now in your older years, I'm sure you can look back and understand that it was a form of grooming that they did, which made you believe that this behavior was okay. What happened there, and do you remember what was said to manipulate you into thinking these sexual acts were okay?
Well, yes, I can remember it like it was yesterday. I remember the very first time it happened. It was one of my older relatives, of course. They used to tell me things like, "This is how we express our love for one another. This is how we supposed to love each other. We supposed to keep it quiet, not say anything." And at that time, I was just so confused. I didn't know what to do, how to feel, or anything. But even though I knew inside of me it didn't feel right, I didn't have a choice but to go with it because I was scared, So that was a very scary experience the very first time, you know what I'm saying? So I just was told that this is the way we were supposed to love each other? So I was like, okay, I guess.
Do you remember what it was that this person did?
Yes. This person used to put my hand on their private area, touch them. They used to touch me in my private area. They used to rub around my butt and all this stuff and say it's okay. I know, and see back then, my body would just be shaking because I would be so scared, and they would try to make me put my mouth on their private area and stuff like that, and it was just it was a lot. It was a lot. Okay, it was a lot, and it even got to the point to where intercourse happened. I don't think that first time, but I think the second time because I stopped fighting because I was just like, maybe if I stop, it'll just go by quicker and it'll just happen quicker and get out the way. But little did I know from a 2 day process ended up stretching out for almost 7, 8 years.
Wow, that was going to be my next question. How long did this last, and did you ever tell anyone?
Yes, it lasted for years. It lasted for years. And when I was in middle school, I remember opening up to a couple of my friends at that time about the situation because I was scared to talk about it. So I remember that when I was 17 or 18, I remember writing a letter to my parents because I didn't know. No, 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 no. As a matter of fact, I was on the phone with my best friend at the time, and I was explaining to him everything that was going on and stuff. Like we was having a deep conversation about it, and I was in my parents' room on the phone talking about it. So I remember with the window being up, I didn't know that my dad was standing outside of the window listening in on me tell my friend about what I was experiencing with this relative, right? So my dad immediately made me get off the phone. And when he came in the house, I was just sitting there so confused. My heart was beating so fast. I was like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And then my dad called my mom and told my mom to come in the room and stuff. And they asked me to elaborate to them what happened, but I couldn't. So I had to end up writing them a letter and putting the letter under their pillow just for them to read it. And when my mom read the letter, she eventually called my relative and all of that. And when people started coming over and stuff like that, my mom jumped on that specific relative. And I remember the last thing she said was, what goes on in this family, what goes on in this house, stays in this family and in this house.
And this is moments where I wish that therapy was more of a resource in the Black community because too often in our community, we sweep things under the rug and we say things like, what goes on in this house stays in our house, which makes us fearful of even speaking to anyone else to get the type of help and resources we may need. And this is a pivotal and huge time where therapy would have been great to come into play for you, but unfortunately, the Black community just is not equipped with that resource the way other
Mhm.
communities are to rely on. I'm so sorry that happened to you, Josh.
It's okay. It's okay.
You later found out though, this wasn't just happening in your home. This was happening in other people's homes who were kids as well around you, which too made you normalize this kind of behavior.
Yes, because of the fact that when I opened up to a couple of friends at that time in school, I had like maybe two, I think it was two or three friends that told me that they were kind of going through a similar situation. You know what I'm saying? So it was like, wow, like I was like, not only is it happening in my bloodline, but it's happening in y'all's too. You know what I'm saying? So I feel like it's a lot of corruption in regards to that in a lot of households and families.
Very true. Very, very, very true. I want to go back to middle school around seventh grade. Sexual behavior patterns would begin to mimic themselves. What took place, back when you started when you were around 11 with a family member, start to mimic in your current life at the time. This time with people around the same age as you, though. Can you walk us through what started to happen there?
Okay, so where I used to live growing up with my parents, me and my brothers, okay, I'm trying to figure out how to say this. Growing up with my brothers and everything, like we stayed on the same road as my cousins, and we used to go down to my cousin house and everything. And of course, the neighbors at the time were, friends of my brother, my younger brother, and my older brother. So it's like, I can say that we used to go up and down the road a lot, playing basketball, talking, mingling, doing whatever. And I can say that one day when I went over the friend's house, you know what I'm saying? It was just crazy how they had brought it to my attention that because okay, let me go back a little bit. They always knew that I was gay because the friends would always pick at me and call me names and stuff, but then we would always still kind of hang together and stuff like that. I guess this was their way of joking, but little did I know one of the friends was kind of interested in me as well as the cousin, So it's like one day I can remember like going down there and everything, and they it was like we was just outside talking, and the next thing I knew, they asked me to perform oral pleasures on them and stuff like that. And I was just like confused because I was only 13, and of course we were around the same age and stuff like that. But the first time I remember getting pushed down to the ground, I got slapped, and I remember they one of them held my mouth open while the other one put his penis inside my mouth. You know what I'm saying? And that was the very first time that I've experienced something like that with them. And little did I know at that time, on top of what I was going through in my private life, I then had this situation that was an ongoing situation because after that first day, they told me I better not tell nobody and I better come down there and see them. So I started going up the street every single day because I was scared. You know what I'm saying? So I already had a situation going on, and then with them, it got to a point to where I would go down there and perform oral pleasures for them, and I couldn't say nothing about it. And when I didn't want to do it on some days, they would beat me, they would jump me, they would just go above and beyond, would hit me with belt buckles and sticks and stomping me on the ground if I didn't do what they wanted me to do.
How long did this go on?
I can say it happened for maybe a couple of months, maybe a couple of months, because I do remember that when I started opening up to friends about that particular situation, and then I started opening up to people that I thought were my friends, that's when it started spreading around the school. And, because of the fact that they didn't act on it and no one never brought it to their attention about the situation, it made it worse. You know what I'm saying? And it's like whenever I would see them after the fact of people supposedly hearing about the situation, they would still jump me, beat on me, force me to do this. And then I had to realize that even though at that time I didn't really understand, but I realized that I played a part in it too because why do I keep going down here? Because I was scared. I was young, I was scared, you know what I'm saying? So it's like after people started talking about it, I remember going to the guidance counselor about it and talking with her about everything because sometimes I would have to put on my mama makeup around my face and stuff like that to kind of hide the marks and stuff. Like when they used to hit me with the belt buckles and leave like bruises and stuff on me, I used to put my mom makeup on my arms and on my face and stuff like that. So yes. And I can say that when I opened up to my guidance counselor about it, little did I know, I didn't think that she was going to go out of her way to call my parents to inform them about everything that I told her, but she did. And that's how my parents got involved. And I think she made a police report. And then that's when I had to go through that whole process of going to court, getting ready for court and stuff like that. And I can say, I think it was like maybe a couple of months later that I went to court and everything. Because I know around eighth grade, they was not in the same school with me anymore because after the court case, they got charged for statutory rape. And I had a restriction, I had to get a restraining order against them. So they couldn't go to the same school as me anymore.
Wow. So what was that like being a young kid having to go to court, get a restraining order? Did you have to testify? What went down?
Yes, I had to testify. I had to testify and speak up about everything that was going on. And it was a very scary moment because it was a lot of my peers, my classmate parents that were in the courtroom and everything, and everybody was getting an earful on the situation. It was overwhelming for me. I was only 13, 14 at that time. So it was very stressful and overwhelming for me because I was so young.
Did any of the bullying continue from other people, being that you were so young? I know that kids can be very cruel. So once you go through something like that and you get back to school, what was that like?
Oh, that was a baby. I was already getting bullied in elementary school, working my way into middle school, sixth grade, seventh grade, and then that situation happened. It just made it worse. People called me a liar. People said that I was begging for attention. I was seeking for attention. None of that stuff happened to me. Then you have some people that believe me and believe that it did happen. You know what I'm saying? And then you have people that's like, "Oh, Josh, you a liar. That's why none of these people don't like you because you talk too much. You tell on everybody. You a punk, you this and that." Like I've had so many different people say so much stuff to me. But I don't even know how I managed to make it through back then, but I did.
Wow. Wow. Talk about strength at a very early age, man.
Yes.
So let's fast forward a bit. Around the time you were 17, you finally gained the courage to tell friends about your sexual abuse, like you said. Your father was listening in on a conversation, and that's how you ended up writing the letter and telling your mom about this family member that was sexually exploiting you. Did that stop the abuse that was taking place?
Yes, it did. It did. Because, I guess once everything got on front stream, then there was no need for you to try to sneak and do it anymore. You know what I'm saying? So after that time, it really did stop.
I mean, it's unfortunate that your mom had to jump on the family member. However, I couldn't imagine being a mom and thinking that's the only way I can protect my child. And then also having the rage to know that this has been going on for possibly 7 years. And you are somebody I call my family. So while I am not um, in support of it, I understand as to why the rage your mom had ended up having something like that happen.